Welcome to Breaking Financial Chains, where we combine practical money guidance with emotional healing to help you break free from financial limitations. I'm Tanya Riverson, your financial wingwoman.
Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Breaking Financial Chains. I'm so happy that you're here. Today I'm going a little bit rogue. Today I'm recording sort of a off-the-cuff episode, so I like to plan ahead several months in advance the things that we're going to talk about and the topics and the themes that we're going to talk about and that we're going to cover. But this one has sort of come off the back of some of the personal work, I guess, that I've done for myself. I think when it comes to coaching and therapy, we're never the final finished piece. We're never the polished article. So today the episode is all about becoming your own wingwoman, and the link between being unmothered and financial freedom. So there's a big personal element which I'll talk about. Key themes are around financial awareness, or the foundations of financial awareness and mindset, with a strong crossover as well into financial control, self-worth and identity. So buckle up. This one's a personal one. Because what I've learnt in my many years working with clients on the accountancy side and also on the coaching side of my business is that sometimes, in fact, I'm going to rephrase that, most of the time, it's never about the money. But it can often look like a money problem. Sometimes instead it's actually a self-worth problem. Sometimes it's an emotional safety problem. Sometimes it starts a lot earlier than actually having the bank account and actually managing money yourself. Sometimes the financial wound and the maternal wound are actually the same. And that's a really big sentence. It's difficult to say. It might be difficult to hear. So hang in there and be gentle with yourself if you're listening to this episode and this brings up anything for you. But if you've ever felt like you're constantly trying to prove yourself, you're constantly chasing security that you feel is never there, constantly feeling like you should have it all together but somehow never quite feel safe, it's likely this episode might hit home. I think a lot of women aren't just financially unsupported, they were emotionally unmothered in the first place, and that can change everything. It changes our outlook, it changes our actions, it changes what we call into our life as well, to some extent. And there comes a point where you stop waiting for someone to become who they were never capable of being. That might be another half, that might be your husband. For me, in the first instance, that was my mother. I love my mother very much. And I will explain more around this, but I've had to accept that I did not have the mother who was able to mother me in the way that I needed. So this is just as much about me. This is not an attack on her. For you, you may feel the same way. This is not about calling out somebody because of who they are. It's about acknowledging what you as a person, as an individual, actually need. So looking back over the work that I've done and my experience, I can now say that my experience, that it did cause lasting damage, but with the work and the effort that I've put into working through all of that, I now also know that was never my fault. It wasn't because I wasn't lovable enough. It wasn't because I did something wrong. My mum did walk out of my life without explanation, not once, twice, but 3 times. And the biggest shift for me wasn't anger. It actually came with acceptance. True, real acceptance, and realising that I didn't need to keep chasing someone to give me something they were never able to give, had never been able to give from the point of becoming a mother themselves. And maybe the lesson was that, and this is the same, can be the truth, this can be said for you as well, is the lesson is I could become that for myself. I could be my own mother. I could be my own safe place. I could be my own wingwoman. And honestly, when we accept that, instead of waiting or having some element of expectation that somebody is going to save you, somebody is going to do that for you, or somehow somebody owes you that, it changes absolutely everything. So what do I mean when I say unmothered? Well, when I say unmothered, I don't necessarily mean abandoned. Sometimes people hear that and assume the worst. You assume and think about dramatic neglect or being completely left to my own devices, and that isn't always what it looks like. Sometimes it looks like a parent who's too absorbed in their own chaos. It looks like emotional immaturity. Sometimes it can look like addiction. Sometimes it can be narcissism. Sometimes it can be linked to mental illness. Sometimes it can look like constant criticism. Sometimes it can look like real inconsistency from a parenting point of view. Sometimes it can look like love that felt conditional. Sometimes it can look like being the child who became an adult just far too early, because sometimes you had a mother that's physically present but emotionally absent. And as children, I've talked about this many times on the podcast, you know, we absorb everything. We're like this giant human-shaped sponge, and we absorb things from far earlier than we give ourselves credit for. But children are really clever and astute. They don't think, oh, I understand that mum has a lot going on. I understand that my mum might be limited, or this person in my life might not have capacity to give me what I need right now. That isn't what children think. Children assume it's them. Children think there must be something wrong with me. I've done something wrong to be treated in a way that makes me feel unsafe. And it's that belief that gets really expensive later on in life, very, very expensive, when we actually acknowledge and realise the stories that we then carry, the behaviours that then play out. It gets incredibly expensive. And when we're talking specifically about money, this shows up in so many ways, because nobody just teaches you about money. We're not taught this stuff in schools. It's very unlikely, or it doesn't happen very often. You don't hear very many stories of parents sitting down with children and explaining how these things work. Instead, the way that we learn is the way that money was modelled for us. People, parents, caregivers, grandparents model how you manage money. They model safety at the same time. They also model worth. They model boundaries, and these are all things that we are absorbing and watching and setting that expectation for how we then grow up. They model what love looks like, as an example. They model whether asking for help is safe, because we see the response, we see the reaction, and we see the action that follows, even where the words might not quite match up. They model whether your needs matter, and if you grow up without that, money then can become emotional. You might undercharge, you might overgive, you might overspend. You might stay in a bad relationship because that might feel safer, or that might feel like something that you recognise. It might mean that you avoid looking at your finances because money is unsafe, because of those feelings that have been modelled to us, because we never saw somebody else do it. It might look like tolerating financial control. It might look like panic around money. It might look like clinging to high achievement for validation. It might look like the constant need to prove yourself, to achieve, without actually acknowledging the hard work and the success that you're experiencing, because it might not look like success at all. It might look like believing that you're lovable, or the belief that you can be loved must be earned. So this is so much more than the money. And those feelings that we have is not because we're bad with money, it's because your nervous system learned survival before it learned security. And that's a very, very different problem. So again, talking from experience and trying to piece this together for this episode sort of leads me on then to my own experience, almost coming full circle to the link back to financially controlling relationships in adulthood. And financially controlling relationships aren't just those relationships where we're romantically involved with someone or we're looking at getting married. Financially controlling relationships can be parent to child abuse. They can be child to parent or elder abuse. They can be abuse in the workplace, with business partners, with friends, with siblings, and so on. But when I look back, I realised that being unmothered or not having what I needed for my security from my mother created a huge gap in my sense of worth. And it's that gap that made me vulnerable. It's that gap that quite literally put a giant beacon on my head. And people who control financially can categorically absolutely smell that gap. And they don't arrive wearing a villain badge or a mask or some sort of outfit. They arrive looking helpful. They arrive looking protective. They arrive looking as someone that needs you. They arrive looking safe. And it's completely disarming, because then we spend our time mirroring and repeating that same behaviour and proving our worth and proving we don't need any support from them because we can be totally self-sufficient, until one day your independence has quietly disappeared. And because you were already so used to proving your worth by over-functioning and earning love through being useful, you don't always see it happening until it's really far too late. That's why financial abuse is so insidious. It doesn't start with control. It starts with that person appearing in your life with familiarity. It looks like something that you recognise, and that in itself is the safety that you believe that you crave. And then things spiral and go downhill. But the great news is that this isn't something that you need to keep repeating. With awareness, we can then change our actions. We can then do something about it. We can safely work through all of those things that have happened and make some different decisions. For me, money became proof, both to my mother. I started work. I didn't go to university because I was worried about the money side of things. I got a job 2 weeks after starting my A-levels, and at that time my mum wasn't working. The only income that we had coming in was from income support. So I earned and I supported. And it was the same when I met my ex. It was the same in that I wanted to prove I wasn't with him. He was supposedly affluent. He had the image, it was the image of wealth, very nice watches and clothes and cars and everything else. And it was super important to me to make sure that I could say, even though I didn't have any money at the time, as I now know, I got myself into that mountain of debt, but it was more about proving myself that I wasn't with him for his. And I wanted to match up to being an equal to him. So I had the nice shoes and the bags and the clothes to not look as though I was falling behind or I wasn't on a par with him. So the money became the proof that I was capable, that I could do that for myself. It was the proof that I was valuable and I deserved to be in that relationship, with the big inverted commas there. It was proof that I was enough. An achievement then, and passing the exams and progressing in my career became the armour. Work became the identity. And in all of that, I lost myself. It's so common for you to lose yourself. Success becomes about survival instead of just being something that you've achieved, just being something that's rewarded for your efforts, that you're actually providing for other people, then you deserve that. you're making other people money, or you're running your own business and supporting a family. For me, from the outside, it looked great. Qualified accountant career, responsibility, but underneath, throughout all of that time, I was still a little girl trying to earn safety. And that's why I say this all the time. More money isn't the answer. Money helps. Money buys you options and choices, but it's not about the money. Because if the nervous system underneath still feels unsafe, more income just gives anxiety a bigger budget. So, all of this to say, what you actually deserve is to be your own wingwoman. And this is the really, really important part. This is what I feel I've come around to for myself. This is the reason I started this podcast. This is the reason I wanted to show my daughters a different way to do it from the way that I was taught. Because this isn't a victim story. This is about the rebuilding. And it's never too late to start this, by the way. It doesn't matter what your age is. This is about recognising that you can do this for yourself. That it might feel sad, and there may be an element of grieving that needs to go into this process. But at some point, we need to stop asking, why didn't they love me properly? And start asking, how do I love myself properly now? I'm reminded of a quote that I saw. In fact, it's actually on my shelf. I bought it when I was out shopping with a friend a couple of years ago. And the quote says, "The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return." It should be the other way around. It's about learning to love yourself first and foremost, and then showing others how to do the same, to model that exact behaviour. And that's where the power is. Becoming your own wingwoman then means trusting yourself, backing yourself, protecting your space, learning financial skills, creating boundaries, and knowing that you're worth sticking to them, saying no, choosing safety, and refusing to outsource your worth. It means learning that financial independence is not just about money. It's about self-trust, it's about freedom, and it's about knowing that no matter what happens, you can hold yourself. In the same way as you may have overcome adversity after adversity, it can be the other way as well. You can manufacture and model your own security and safety. So as I say, this is why I do what I do. Yes, I help women with money, but really I help women remember that they're allowed to take up space. I help women stop apologising for needing security. I help women stop handing over financial power because they were taught that their voice didn't matter. I help women become their own wingwoman until eventually they don't need me anymore. The goal is not about dependency, it's about freedom. Fly beside someone until they trust their own wings, and that's the work. And that's the work that we can all do, and we owe it to ourselves and our friends and our siblings and our children to do exactly the same. And it starts with us. It starts with acknowledging that it was never our fault in the first place. It was never our doing. We have worth exactly as we are, and we can take it from there one step at a time. So, I suppose in closing, I just want to share that if nobody taught you how to feel safe, that's not your fault. But it does become your responsibility, not as a punishment, but as power. So you're not too late, you're not too broken, you're not too far behind. You can learn, you can rebuild. You can rewrite the story and start operating from the pages of your own book. And maybe the most powerful thing you'll ever do is to stop waiting for someone else to save you and decide to become your own wingwoman instead. So I have a reflective question for you, as I like to bring to my episodes. So have a think, get your pen out and your journal. Take this with you on your next dog walk or your walk around the block or whenever you're getting your steps in. Ask yourself this question and just ponder and see where your mind takes you. Where in my life am I still waiting for permission, validation, or safety from someone else? When maybe it's time to start giving that to myself. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining me today on Breaking Financial Chains. Remember, you have the power to transform your relationship with money one step at a time. If this episode helped you, please subscribe and leave a review to help others find their path to financial freedom. I'm Tanya, your financial wingwoman, and I'll see you next week.